Could Josh McDaniels be the next offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm going to discuss that possibility on today's edition of Steelers Talk. Then also, I've got some more takeaways from Thursday Night Football that I'm going to share with you guys. I got 3 more that I didn't share in my post-game coverage. And then also, we have a big injury update on Cole Holcomb that we're going to be revealing at the end of today's show. So make sure you guys stick around and what that could mean for the Steelers moving forward. But before we get into the juicy stuff today, the meat and potatoes of today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, make sure you click that thumbs up icon and like today's video if you're excited that the Steelers got to 5-3 and beat the Tennessee Titans there on Thursday. So now let's talk about Josh McDaniels, the potential next offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, where, of course, he was the Raiders head coach here for about the last year and a half, finally fired by Mark Davis. And in my opinion, Josh McDaniels is not a head coach in the National Football League. He's had 2 chances to kind of make his mark as a head coach, and it just hasn't worked out for Josh McD right now. So it looks like he's going to get an offensive coordinator job eventually. He's been really successful in that role throughout his career. So if the Pittsburgh Steelers decide to bring him in, what can Steelers fans hope to expect from Josh McDaniels as an offensive play caller? Well, his offensive scheme, he runs a modern pro spread offense. He's kind of comes from the Earhart-Perkins kind of school of thought here, where the quarterback is going to be heavily, heavily important to this system. You need a quarterback that's extremely intelligent, somebody that's accurate, somebody that's extremely precise in his processing, and then he has to have excellent chemistry with his wide receivers. Lots of choice routes, lots of option routes. The quarterback has ultimate control at the line of scrimmage, can tell whatever receiver at any time to run any route. So if you're the quarterback in this system, not only do you have to learn this very complex system, not only do you have to have excellent chemistry with these wide receivers to execute these choice routes, but you have to be able to understand what a defense is showing you pre-snap and then get the offense into the right play. Really need a highly intelligent quarterback, which is why guys like Tom Brady, Mac Jones in his rookie season really succeeded in Josh McDaniels' offense, because they're highly intelligent and they can get the offense in and out of the right play given what the defense is showing them. It's a very difficult system to master, but if you can master it, and Tom Brady showed this throughout his time in New England, you can absolutely be dominant with this type of offense. Plus, Josh McDaniels has already failed as a head coach twice, so if he comes to the Steelers, who have a defensive head coach in Mike Tomlin, and he ends up having success here, he's likely not going to get poached for a 3rd opportunity to be a head coach. So this might be the perfect opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to not only get a top-of-the-line offensive play caller in their building, but to keep him long-term, because nobody wants to take a shot at this guy as their next head coach. And my take on this whole situation is that although I'd love to have McDaniels at the top of the short list and he would love to come to Pittsburgh and this is where he would want to be, I really don't think that Pittsburgh is at the top of his list right now. I think he wants to go back, work with his buddy, Bill Belichick, and he really is Belichick's guy, right? Every single time he's been available, Belichick brings him back into the fold. And, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Patriots do with Belichick there in New England moving forward. But even if Belichick gets fired, who's the guy that he's going to bring elsewhere to be his offensive coordinator? It's going to be Josh McDaniels, right? So no matter what, I really do think that Bill O'Brien's out working in New England right now. I don't really see any reason why Bill wouldn't bring Josh McDaniels back to New England if he does keep his job in New England. But even if Bill gets fired and he gets a chance to start fresh elsewhere, I really think Josh McDaniels is going to be his first choice. And if you're Josh McDaniels and you've had that much success with a guy like Bill Belichick in the past, why wouldn't you want to go work with that guy again? So as much as I would consider Josh McDaniels as a potential offensive coordinator candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward, I really don't think it's that much of a realistic possibility. But if we want to talk more about a realistic possibility here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's talk about Byron Leftwich. And Big Ben Roethlisberger says that if the Steelers move on from Matt Canada as the offensive coordinator, and given the trajectory of the season right now, it definitely seems like that's a big-time possibility at this point. It seems like Big Ben wants his former backup quarterback to take this job because he thinks he's a good offensive coordinator. This is what Big Ben had to say on his podcast here about Byron Leftwich. I think if the team was to move on from Matt Canada, I would love to see Byron Leftwich come in here and be the OC. He was there. He played under Coach Tomlin. He understands what it means to be a Steeler. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. Now, I wouldn't mind Byron Leftwich either. He might not be my number one choice. Like I said before on the show, man, like Byron Leftwich really struggled in Tampa Bay last year, even with Tom Brady, right? So, I think Leftwich is somebody that runs it's actually a pretty similar offense to what Josh McDaniels runs there with the Earnhardt Perkins, but it's more Bruce Arians based than Earnhardt Perkins, where it's a lot more choice routes. It's a lot more down the field passing in Leftwich's offense compared to Josh McDaniels. So it kind of depends what your vision is for the future of the offense here in Pittsburgh and what you'd want to see. But Byron Leftwich, man, he does have that Steeler culture instilled in him. He knows what it means to hold that position here in this city and represent this football franchise. So I wouldn't mind Byron Leftwich at all. But personally, if you ask me, if I was in charge of getting the next offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I am trying to get somebody from the Kyle Shanahan tree that's going around town right now. These guys understand the modern trends in the NFL that we all know we're not seeing from the Steelers offense right now. Motion before the snap, crossing routes, getting guys open in space. The modern elements in the NFL that teams like San Francisco, Miami, Los Angeles, all these different teams are taking advantage of right now. The Steelers just aren't doing that. They're throwing outside the numbers. They have stagnant formations. They have predictable play calls. I mean, all these different things. And then you put on top of that Matt Canada's terrible situational play calling, and it's a recipe for disaster. So if I had two people that I would hire, if I had a choice, I would be fine with either one of these gentlemen right here. Chris Forster, the run game coordinator / offensive line coach from San Francisco, would be my number one option. I think he's an excellent offensive mind. He's worked with the offensive line before as well. So he's somebody that could fix the Steelers' offensive line immediately. Then you get Darrell Bevell, the QB coach from the Miami Dolphins, is currently tutoring under Mike McDaniel, who is one of the brightest offensive minds in the National Football League, doing all this awesome pre-snap motion stuff that they're doing in Miami. I would love to see that system implemented here in the Steel City. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Pick an offensive coordinator for the future. Are you picking Josh McDaniels, type JM? Are you taking Byron Leftwich, type BL? Are you going with Chris Forster, type CF? Or if you're going with Darrell Bevell, type DB. And if there's somebody else, just let me know down there in the comments. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now let's go over some of my other takeaways here from the Tennessee Titans game in Week 9, Thursday Night Football, a 20-16 victory. And my first takeaway here is that Kenny Clutch is absolutely a real thing at this point. This is now his 7th game-winning drive in the fourth quarter or overtime in just 21 starts. That's absolutely fantastic, in my opinion, from somebody that's this young, that's just getting started in the National Football League. Now, Kenny definitely needs to be more productive in the first 3 quarters, right? There's no doubt about that. But I think some of that can be attributed to Matt Canada. Of course, some of it is obviously on Pickett, and he needs to improve that. But given that ability to show up when the lights are brightest, that shows me that Kenny Pickett could absolutely one day be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback if he figures things out and if he develops in the years to come. I've pretty much never seen a quarterback like this before. Usually quarterbacks are good or decent in the first 3 quarters, and then they shrink in the fourth quarter, right? That's what you usually see because the pressure isn't quite as high in the first 3 quarters. And when the pressure gets on there, they shrink. But it's the exact opposite here with Kenny Pickett, where first 3 quarters, not so great. Then he gets to the fourth quarter, and he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. The only other quarterback that I really remember seeing like this is Tim Tebow when he was playing with the Denver Broncos. Now, obviously, Kenny Pickett is a much better quarterback overall than Tim Tebow. I'm not necessarily saying Kenny Pickett is Tim Tebow, okay? That's not what I'm saying, so don't come at me in the comments for that. However, that ability to turn it up when the lights are brightest and deliver victories, he absolutely has that Tebow effect here in Pittsburgh. And if he can develop those first 3 quarters and really become a fully encapsulated, realized talent here in Pittsburgh, the Steelers might have something here in Kenny Pickett. Number 2 takeaway here, JPJ, Joey Porter Jr., is a freaking star, man. I absolutely loved watching his tape this week against DeAndre Hopkins. And listen, there's people on Twitter, there's Cleveland Brown crybabies on Twitter saying, oh, this guy holds on every single play. This guy is such a cheater. Blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the thing, man. This guy's no doubt about it. He's physical. Can he get a little bit too grabby at times? Yes. But listen, man, plain simply, you can get away if you can get away with it. That's an elite trait in an NFL shutdown corner. I'm sorry, it is. If you can get away with being a little bit too physical at the catch point, if you can get away with these things, I mean, that's a positive for the football team, right? The negative is when it becomes a penalty. And right now, Joey Porter Jr. definitely got a couple of penalties to clean up at this point. But in press coverage, Joey Porter Jr. locked up somebody that I consider a top 10 quarter or wide receiver in this league right now in DeAndre Hopkins. Absolutely destroyed the Falcons the week before, and Joey Porter Jr. covered him like a freaking glove. I'm calling him Joey the Glove Porter. He's absolutely fantastic, and I think he's going to be a star in this league moving forward. So still to come on today's show, I got 2 more Week 9 takeaways to come. I got a Cole Holcomb injury update for you guys, and then also I got some updated Steelers playoff chances after the win here in Week 9. So you don't want to miss that. But first, let's talk about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And let me tell you, man, I've been absolutely addicted to using Prize Picks. This app is absolutely fantastic ever since we started partnering with them. And guess what? I actually made some money last night betting or picking the Steelers yesterday. So if you want to spice up your game days this NFL season, get started with Prize Picks today. Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. And if you're looking for a more fun way to spend your game days, look no further than Prize Picks. You might be asking yourself, how does it work? Well, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can take a look at my picks for this Sunday's matchup between the Dolphins and Kansas City Chiefs. Really explosive matchup there. I'm taking the less on Tua Tagovailoa's passing yards, and then I'm going to take the more on Patrick Mahomes. I think Mahomes is going to have a nice bounce-back performance after kind of a slumping one there against the Denver Broncos. You can check it out now and get your Prize Picks in before Sunday's action by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100 today. With Prize Picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. So get started right away. Get them in before football starts on Sunday. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS for a deposit match up to $100 today. Now, my final takeaway here from Week 9 is that the run game finally got going. I mean, this is one of the biggest reasons why the Steelers offense has been so putrid to start this season is because the run game has not been able to get going with Najee Harris leading the way. And then this week, it was more of a 50-50 committee between Najee and Jaylen Warren. And not only did Najee look more fresh in this game, he had a touchdown in this football game as well, really nice one there on the first drive of the game. But then Jaylen Warren got the opportunity to make plays, and he actually led this team in rushing. He was a big-time playmaker for this offense. Arguably, besides maybe Deontay Johnson, the best offensive player on the field yesterday for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm telling you guys right now, I think Jaylen Warren is probably the best running back on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I'm not trying to say that Najee should not get any reps whatsoever and that he should be completely put on the tailpipe here and he shouldn't play at all. Of course, he has a big role to play in this offense, right? He's got a big, powerful frame. He's somebody that's valuable in the red zone, all these different things. But Jaylen Warren provides that oomph. He provides that little bit of playmaking element, the short area quickness to kind of sift through these really short areas that Najee just doesn't have at his size. And it's not Najee's fault, right? But I think that Jaylen Warren is the type of guy that's kind of in the mold of an Austin Eckler. He's not as good as Eckler is, obviously, but Jaylen Warren is kind of that similar type of guy. Very shifty, very smart, very fast as well. And I'm telling you, man, this guy is one of the best playmakers on this team, maybe besides George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. I think Jaylen Warren might be the third best offensive player on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. But let me know if you agree with me down there in the comments section. Who's the best running back on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now? Type JW if you think it's Jaylen Warren, or type NH if you think it's Najee Harris. And now the next here, before I go, I do have some final news items that I want to share with you guys here around the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a ton of news going around right now, so let's jump right into it. Let's start with kind of the biggest news of the day surrounding starting linebacker Cole Holcomb. He is now going to be out for the season with a gruesome knee injury. I don't know if you guys saw that slow motion video. We're not going to show it on here. I can tell you that much. But it's pretty gruesome. It's pretty gross. Looks like it's going to be a while for Cole Holcomb to get back. We wish him all the best. Make sure you spam 55 in the comments here to show some love to Cole Holcomb. And then also, there's another injury yesterday that I know that there's a lot of Steelers fans that were concerned about. Treylon Burks, the wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, had to get carted off in the fourth quarter. Really did not look good. Completely passed out after an incomplete. Tried to go up to make a catch there on an incomplete pass, and he kind of fell to the turf, and it just didn't look great. He suffered a concussion. It wasn't anything super major, and he ended up walking out of the stadium last night, so that's great news to hear for Treylon Burks. It's good to see that he's going to be okay. And then, something that I thought was really interesting was Chukwuma Okorafor talked to the media about why he was benched for Broderick Jones at the right tackle spot. And he said it was his own fault because he, quote-unquote, acted out after the Steelers' Week 8 loss versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is what Okorafor had to say. I talked to Coach Tomlin, and he said it has nothing to do with my play on the field. It was something that happened last week. I'm talking about Week 8 towards the end of the game versus the Jaguars. I wasn't sure what's going to happen, but we'll see what happens next week. Talking about who's going to start next week versus the Green Bay Packers. Hopefully, I'll be back out there. I have no idea yet. I kind of said stuff I shouldn't have said. Being in year 6, I can't act out how I was acting out. So it seems like Chukwuma Okorafor is certainly in trouble right now. There's rumors going around that because Broderick Jones played so well last night versus the Titans that the Steelers are considering cutting Chukwuma Okorafor. If that happens, man, that would be a huge development for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Make sure you click that subscribe button in case they cut Chukwuma Okorafor in the days to come. So let me know what you guys think. What's going to happen here with Chucks? Do they keep him, or do you think that they cut him? Will he get cut before the year ends? Type C if you think they're going to cut Chucks, or if you think they're going to keep him. Type K down there in the comment section. Final news item of the day here, which is that the Pittsburgh Steelers' chances to make the playoffs have exponentially gone up after that win versus the Tennessee Titans. If they would have lost yesterday's game, according to Pro Football Focus, their chances of making the playoffs would have only been a 23%. But because you come away with the victory and you're sitting at 5-3, your chances to go to the playoffs are now about 50-50. 51% is the exact figure right there. So you got to be feeling pretty good about the black and gold here as we approach the Packer week coming up here, especially because you got a long week here to prepare. I think the Steelers are going to beat Green Bay. You're going to be sitting at 6-3, and that number, that probability of making the NFL postseason this year is only going to go up. Now, let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers make the playoffs this year? They were a hair away. They were a Joe Flacco 13-point performance last year from making the playoffs. Do they get the job done this year with Kenny Pickett as their quarterback and Matt Canada as their offensive coordinator? Type yes or no for me down there in the comment section and let me know. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button for me right now. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.